Welcome to Lolly Doodle Studios YouTube page. It is never too soon to start getting ready for the Christmas holiday. Come on in, let's design a Christmas card. I'm going to show you how you can make one even if you have no clue where to begin with a brush lettering pen and you have no skill at all with hand lettering. Come on, I'm going to show you how easy it is. To get started with today's video, I'm going to be using my brush lettering and Artful Adventure Holiday Edition brush lettering book. Inside of this book are all kinds of guides and instructions to teach you how to not only hand letter but become amazing with Fauxligraphy and everything else. So I know how frustrating it is when you are learning a new skill, but you want to jump right in and make the pretty things today. You don't want to wait months down the road. So this book is perfect, and I'm going to show you a way to use it. So we're going to use the book. I'm going to use a piece of watercolor paper cut down into the shape of a card. I have an envelope here that we can use as well. So I'm going to use the book, and you can use whatever you would like. Feel free to grab your paints, your watercolor paints. But today I'm going to show you how you can use some simple water-based markers, whether they be Tombow, King's Art, doesn't matter what the brand. And I'm going to use just a simple black pen or a black gel pen of some sort. We're not even going to use a brush lettering pen, but those are the supplies. But I'm going to show you how to use these as watercolor. If you have watercolor, feel free to use it. I'm also going to just use a piece of palette. This is just a styrofoam plate. You could use a Ziploc bag. Use whatever you have. So while you're gathering your supplies, you're also going to want to have on hand a piece of carbon transfer paper or transfer paper of some sort. So I have a small piece of that here. I'm going to set to the side. Now, while we're gathering all of our supplies and getting ready, I just want to make sure that you know today's video is part of a YouTube collaboration. It is a decoration and DIY ideas list for Christmas. So our playlist is hosted today by Teresa of Teresa's Silhouette Spot for Art and Amanda from Simply Flamazing Art. I'd love it if you give them a follow. Check out all of the videos in this awesome playlist. Like and subscribe to my channel and anyone else who might strike your fancy in this playlist. You never know, you might just find your new favorite creator. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. So I already showed you a little peek inside of the book. I am going to do a mix of watercoloring with the markers, and we're also going to put some lettering on there. So I'm looking in my book, and I've already kind of picked out the phrase Holly Jolly is appealing to me today. Merry Christmas is appealing to me today, but I think we'll stick with Holly Jolly. And then what I'm also going to do is there's a page in here of a letter that you can do to Santa, and on it I've drawn some candy and some cookie shapes that can be done. So I'm going to just kind of mimic the shape of a tree onto the card. So I'm going to set that here and pull the card around. Let's see. Oh, a pencil would have been a smart thing to get. And the pencil that I have, funny thing, has been chewed on by my little puppies. But that is quite all right. So I'm going to fold my card. Now, you don't have to do this as a card. Feel free to do this on a tag. Feel free to do this just on a piece of watercolor paper. You can put this inside of a frame and just have a really cute a little piece of decoration. So I'm going to use my pencil and I'm going to draw out, let's do the shape of a candy cane. So I'm just going to do this by sketching out, but if you'd like, you can use the book. Feel free to blow these up to a larger size and go ahead and use the pattern as you see fit. But a candy cane is, to me, you know, the shape of a cane or an upside down J. And I'm gonna make this really, really chunky and bubbly. Hopefully you can see that, because I want this to look as though it were a cookie fresh out of the oven. Let's see if I have any eraser left on there. The joys of being an artist with puppies around. If they can grab it, they will chew it. So there's my outside of the candy cane cookie. And now inside of that, I'm gonna mimic that same line, but I want it to be a bit wonky and wavy. I don't want it to be perfect because I want it to look like the icing is dripping and melting around the cookie. So we'll see that in a few minutes. I will put a few little curved lines coming around my candy cane. If a candy cane shape is not for you, feel free to just do a circle and make it a little peppermint. Do yourself a little tree, a snowflake shape, anything. You could even do a bell. So we just want it to kind of look like a cookie. So to get started, I'm gonna grab my plate back over. And again, you could do this with a piece. You just want something that's not gonna soak in. You could do this on an extra plate that you're not using in your kitchen. You can do this on a piece of plastic, a piece of Ziploc bag. I'm just gonna take a little bit of my red marker, and it really only takes a little bit because we want to get the light and delicate look of a watercolor using the marker. So I'm gonna put that on here. I'm just gonna rub a good bit of that on this plate, and I'm gonna go ahead and just cap it. And then I'm gonna grab my brush with some fresh water. I'm gonna grab my brush with some water, and I'm gonna pick up some of that red with my brush, right? Water-based marker will act just like watercolor when you use it on the brush. So I've got a good bit of water on here with my marker, and every other little shape that I've put on here that's pretty wet, I'm just going to outline it, and I'm going to just come over here and do the same. So I'm going to skip every other little block, and then I'm going to come back in and just sort of use my brush to fill that in a bit, right? I'm keeping it light and airy. I don't mind seeing some of the white of the paper. If I want it to be darker, I can pick some more red back up with my brush and just drop some of that around the edges, right? So we're just tapping that around the edge of the candy cane. This is that inner part of it. So let's come in just a bit closer so you can see. And as long as that is wet, everything is just going to blend, and watercolor will continue to do what watercolor does. So I've got a good bit of water on my brush. I'm going to fill that in. You'll see here where I let some of the white of the paper show through. I like that look, and I'm going to fill it in here. Then I'm going to come back and get some more of that brighter red and drop that in here and there. You can go around the edges. I like to go around the edges and let it blend towards the center, but you could just pick one side or one area to put your darker color, and it will just blend, right? So I'm going to let that dry. While we're letting that dry, it's not a lot of water, as you can see. Hopefully you can see. When we're working with water in any way, we don't want it to be puddles and puddles and soaking wet with water. We just want a little bit of glisten on the paper. So this is starting to dry. It's going to dry pretty quick because we've been very dry here. We're under a drought. We're in a severe drought here in PA, believe it or not. It's crazy. But my paper is going to dry pretty quick because we are so dry in the air. But I want to let that finish completely drying before I do the brown of my cookie. Because if not, when I touch the brown of the marker for the cookie, if it were wet and it touched the red of the icing, it would just all, water's going to travel to water and it will just all blend and you'll have one big muddy looking cookie. So while that's drying, that's when we're going to come back over here. And I know I have this whole other side of my card. So I'm going to come to my page and I'm going to decide what phrase that I want to use. I love all of these phrases in here, and you can make cards using this book. This book is available. I'll link it below. But I think we're going to stick with Holly Jolly. So what I'm going to do is slide this under the card, or slide it over the card, and I know that it's going to be right about there, sort of centered. So I'm going to hold it there. If you don't feel comfortable holding it, go ahead and lightly tape it down to your watercolor card. Pull up just a bit. And I'm going to sandwich in between the paper and the card my transfer paper. Now on the transfer paper, there's a dull side and a shiny side. The shiny side is what you want to have facing down. That's what's going to come off and transfer your wording down onto your card. Now this is so that you can get right in here, start creating today, even if you've never hand lettered or brush lettered anything before in your life. So this is my book. I'm going to go right ahead and start doing it. I am just going to use a pen and I'm lightly going to transfer. I'm just going to trace over the letters, and I want to take a peek before I go too far. I want to make sure I'm holding that, and then I'm just going to carefully pull this back to make sure that it's transferring, and you can see there that it is. So I'm just going to finish transferring this over, and I am going to do this with a black pen, so I'm not worried. I can go a little bit dark with my transfer paper because it will cover, but I'm just going to go ahead and trace all of that. Okay, so take your time. You can get in there and really transfer wherever the thin to the thick is. You can go along and transfer that over if you don't feel comfortable, but I'm going to show you the trick here when we're doing this in just a second. All right, so I'm done. I'm going to lift this up. Before you let go, you can always check again just to make sure everything transferred over, and it did. So here it is on there. I'm going to close this. Okay, so here's our card, and here's our candy cane cookie and the word Holly Jolly. Now, I can come in here with a marker. You can use a Crayola, use what you have. You can use, these are one of my favorite gel pens. This is the Gel pen. We've also got a Jelly Roll Glaze. I love these because even when they're dry, they look wet. Now the only thing is, when you're using a water-based gel pen with a watercolor project, make sure that everything that you're going to go on and touch with your pen doesn't hit anything that's wet, or vice versa, because it will activate just like our markers did. So I'm a lefty. I'm going to come in from the side. If you're right-handed, you'd be coming in from this side, starting, and you can trace. Now, what I do know, and what you learn in the book, is that anywhere you are writing in an upwards fashion, Well, just trust me. Anywhere that you're going in an upwards fashion is going to be a thin stroke. Anywhere that you're coming back down towards yourself or downwards is going to be that thick stroke. So when you look at the letters, this is down, so it's thick. This goes up, it's thin, thick, thin to thick. So we're going to just mimic that here. I know that this is going to the side. I can make it as thick as I want it, but I'm going to leave it a bit on the thin side. I'll come in close again so you guys can see pretty well. This is a downward stroke. So when I make this part of my H, I know that I'm coming down. So I'm just going to come in and make this line thicker, and I'm going to fill it in, okay? So I'm going to fill that part of my H in. You'll see where that looks nice and shiny. That's the beauty of these glaze pens. Even when it's dry, it keeps that wet look. So right here, I'm coming up. I only want a thin line with my pen. When I go to come back down, I know I want this to be thick again. And then I'm going to come in and fill that in. Okay, you can switch and do different colors. That would be fun to do as well. I'm just going to stick with the black. So with my O, this is downwards for me, and this is coming back up. So this side I'm going to keep thin, but this side I want to come over and I want to thicken that side of my O. And I can make it as thick as I want it. You don't have to thicken it at all if you don't, okay? So with this L, this is a downward. I'm going to thicken that pretty well. I'm going to color that in. I'm going to do this curly part of my L. I'm just going to put a little bubble there on the tail. This is an upward. I'm going to leave it thin. When I'm coming down, I'm going to come back in here and thicken that part up and color that in. I can do the whole letter, come back and do that. And then when I go up again, I want to leave that thin. Right, so let's do the whole Y. This is a downward stroke. We're going up. So down and up, back down, around is up, and over. Now, I want to come back, and anywhere that we would have went down with that pen, we're going to thicken it. And again, as thick as you want to go. Okay, and I like to just put that little bubble at the end of my letter, completely optional. And then we'll do the same thing here on the bottom with the capital J for jolly. Another fun thing to do with that is to leave this open and not color it in, if you feel comfortable with doing that. So I'm just going to go around my O again. I know I want this side to be thicker. This one I'm coming up, around, and down. I know that I want this to be thicker. I can curl that back up. I have another capital L here. I like to mix. This is just a fun and playful way. These alphabets are inside of this book as well. Alrighty, so we'll do that. Same here. And you see on this one, we traced the thickness from the book when we put it over. So we know exactly where we want to color that in. Right? But if you want to just go ahead and do it this way, you're free to do that as well. I'm going to put my little bubble and finish that off. Alrighty, I'm just going to finish filling this part, the downward stroke of my letters in with my glaze pen. Okay, so we've got Holly Jolly on there. I want to come back now. We're going to switch focuses just a little bit now. I'm going to turn my paper. So remember, I don't want to get this wet. This ink will do exactly what this ink does, the marker ink. So I'm just going to turn my card to the side. I'm going to grab my palette or my plastic piece, whatever I'm using, I'm going to grab my brown marker and I'm going to put a good bit of brown on there, just like we did with the red. Use whatever color brown that you would like. I am going to come back and grab my brush again with my water. Okay, water on my brush, and I'm going to activate that. So I'm making this into watercolor. This is just my water and my ink. And then what I'm going to do now is come around this outer edge between the icing and my original outline for the candy cane. And I'm filling in the parts of it that are the cookie. So the red and the white stripes are the icing on my cookie, and this is the actual brown of the cookie under the icing. So just like I did with the red, and now I can come back and pick up more of my brown, stronger brown, and I can come around the edges of my cookie to make them darker in spots. Depends, you know, it looks like it's been in the oven a little bit longer. Make it darker in spots to make a shadow. If it's not blending, you can come in with a little bit more water on your brush and just kind of work it lightly back and forth together. Okay, so you can go as dark as you want with that. And there is your candy cane cookie and your holly jolly lettering. And I think what I want to do right now is just add a little bit of embellishment. So I'll just take a peek back inside the book again, and let's see if we have some embellishments that we would want to use. Let's see. We could do something like that. Yeah, I think we'll do something like that. So basically what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to just draw what would look like a little comma, and I'll do 1, 2, 3 of them there, and maybe I'll do 1, 2, and 3 of them there. Okay, and then we can fill them in, or we can leave them hollow, but I'm going to go ahead and fill them in. I am running low on that ink in my pen. That is how much I love these glaze pens. All of the supplies are linked below in the description box, as well as a link to grab a copy of the Brush Lettering and Artful Adventure Holiday Edition lettering book. Would love it if you would hit that like button, subscribe to my channel for more artsy fun. Let's take an art adventure together. And I will see you next time. Don't forget to like and follow everyone on our Christmas decorating and DIY YouTube collaboration. Have a wonderful day.